Let's start with a question that we'd like you to think about. Have you ever done something that made you feel alive, surprised others with how daring it was, and left a positive mark on the world?
This is something you might have an immediate answer to, or something you have to dig a little bit deeper into.
We brought you a story today that may sound extraordinary to some, but we want to make it accessible to everyone.
Together, we embarked on a journey that took us across 2.5 continents in Latin America, hitchhiking, wild camping, and volunteering, all while living on just $1 a day for an entire year.
We wanted to see what the minimum is that we can spend and still feel happy. And in the end, we realized that on average, we didn't exceed $1 per person each day.
Most expenses were joint expenses, such as hygiene articles, rice, or most importantly, coffee. However, we could also see that we were able to spend 8 to 12 days on the road without spending a single cent. Today, we'd like to share our learnings from 2 very different perspectives.
My name is Andrea, someone who loves to plan things out from start to finish.
And I'm Tobias. I enjoy tackling obstacles as they come.
What we discovered during the trip was not just about surviving on limited means, but it was also about growing, thriving, and redefining perspectives.
So today, let's dive into our 3 main lessons learned.
It all began with breaking free from routines and familiar territory. Stepping out of your comfort zone can unlock a huge number of new possibilities.
This trip was on our mind for quite some time, but then COVID happened, which certainly built up a hunger for adventure and change. However, people around us seemed to move past financial instability, settle down, and be more or less clear on what was coming next.
Research tells us that experiences rather than materialism lead to great happiness. So we decided to collect experiences and not things. Leaving behind the predictability of our daily lives was a challenge, but it led to some unexpected insights, to say the least.
Take Argentina. This was the 2nd country we visited after getting our first taste of hitchhiking in Chile. One evening, we were on our way to Buenos Aires, hitchhiking with a lorry driver on his way there, and at 10 p.m., his truck just broke down. We had our tent at hand, as we were always white camping, but he offered us to sleep in the truck cabin, so that's what we did. And the day after, we had no idea when the mechanic would arrive, so we just started walking the highway, said bye to our new friends, putting our thumbs out.
10 minutes later, this guy stops. He was on his way to Buenos Aires, more than happy to pick us up, and we bonded straight away. His name was Pablo, and he asked us, "Why do you want to see Buenos Aires?" I told him that we wanted to try out tango, because I'm a dancer at heart, and the asado, because apparently that's the best Argentinian steak out there. He said, "Well, then you have to come to my place, because I make the best Argentinian steak in the world." We had to take him up on that.
So when arriving to Pablo's place, he showed us around, said to make ourselves feel like home, and then he suddenly vanished. So he had to go on an errand, leaving these 2 strangers he'd known for less than 3 hours alone in his home, unattended. Completely unattended. When he returned, he introduced his partner. We ended up preparing food together, having a great evening together. We even ended up staying 4 nights with them.
One of the things we kept thinking about after meeting Pablo was the level of trust he showed us by inviting 2 complete strangers into his home and just leaving us there.
Maybe it was the bond creating during the car ride that made him do so, or the fact that we seemed to be in a vulnerable situation. Or Pablo was already implementing the aspect of stepping out of your comfort zone and trying something new. We can't say for sure.
What we can say is that we kept in touch with him for the rest of the trip. And among all the people we met while traveling, he remains one of the closest ones.
What is one thing you always wanted to do but haven't yet due to routine or fear? For me, that could be giving a TEDx talk like this, because I absolutely hate speaking in front of people. Or getting on a random flight, or taking regular health checkups.
All in all, stepping outside of your comfort zone and breaking free from routines while investing into experiences rather than buying stuff can lead to unexpected insights and meaningful connections.
Breaking free from routine by constantly being on the move while relying on others also open doors to making genuine connections outside our social bubbles.
While we were traveling or volunteering, we met people with all kinds of backgrounds, stories, beliefs on a daily basis.
And when you live most of your adult life in the city, you tend to forget that every day you're passing by thousands of people and stories. You just simply zone out. This was quite the opposite of that.
There are countless of examples of the genuine connections we made while traveling. We still keep in touch with many of our new friends.
Many of the friendships we made along the way were definitely strengthened by whatever situation we would find ourselves in, especially on the road. For example, we never thought that we would hitchhike in the cargo area of a truck, or on top of 450 cases of bottled beer, or that a young crew picking us up insisting that since it's such a long drive, we should definitely stop by a cavern and swim in a waterfall.
We also acquired some new families along the way, feeling like we now have homes in various different countries. And Toby also managed to jam his way into people's heart through music, all by hitchhiking, having a great conversation in the car, being invited over so we can stay safe for the night, and then playing on the harmonica, guitar, piano until dawn in many different countries. While being open and kind to people, you can experience so many small miracles that it's hard to grasp.
Living on limited means also taught us to adopt a more environmentally conscious lifestyle.
People often think that living sustainably is expensive and time-consuming, whereas surprisingly, it made our lives so much easier. We reused all our broken things in new creative ways, such as a sock with a hole in it would be altered into a hair tie, or as we hitchhiked, we shared cars with others, hence we use less gasoline on a per-head basis.
The importance of sustainability in our trip also became clearer the more we traveled. For example, everything we had was in our backpacks. That was our entire life. And it was really important that whatever we carried on our shoulders was something that we would use. This really made me reflect on how much stuff I would buy and consume in my everyday life, and if there really was a need for all of it.
Studies show that often rethinking beliefs, even other conclusions, is possible. So we also spent a lot of time volunteering in different countries and in different places, helping out small families and different businesses. For example, we met Steph and Myra in the Chilean countryside, where we helped them out for a week in their sustainable home and bamboo architecture farm. These two amazing human beings live without producing nearly any waste. They even have proper systems for recycling your own poop. They had a small garden with all sorts of veggies and fruits, and they even started brewing their own beer while we were there, so we were lucky to taste the first batch. It was delicious. And let me emphasize this again. There was no waste.
And the beauty of that is that you don't have to live in the Chilean countryside to be able to accomplish that. So we'd like to challenge you to reflect on how you can incorporate sustainable practices in your everyday life, whether it's by using less plastic or buying less stuff, starting communal gardens, or simply cycling to work instead of driving.
Our experiences showed us that by making meaningful connections outside of our social bubbles, or living in eco-friendlier ways can make life so much simpler and satisfying, while it actually doesn't have to consume your time or money.
This journey also taught us the power of redefining risks as opportunities. If you embrace vulnerability, this can lead to personal growth and small victories.
When crossing the land border from Honduras to Nicaragua, exactly 1 year ago today, we had our eyes set crossing the Somoto Canyon, which was a big hike. We knew that it would be very time-consuming to do the hike there, and also that it would take us at least a day to cross through the whole canyon. We also knew that we've been hitchhiking and wild camping for over a week, running out of clean clothes, food, and energy.
So when checking out the village of Somoto, we came across this beautiful little hostel, and we made really good friends with the owner, Carla. She was more than curious to hear how two foreigners with massive backpacks ended up close to the Nicaraguan border.
We ended up talking to her for hours about travels, nature, running a business, and life in general. Since we felt a strong bond building between us, we made a suggestion. What if we do some digital marketing work for the hostel in exchange for 3 days of food and accommodation? She said yes.
So we held a little meeting with Carla, trying to understand what message and vibe she wanted to send with the hostel. And after 2 days of creative work, we had regained our energy. Carla was thrilled with the end results, and we had enough time to explore the Somoto Canyon without feeling any constraints.
Which was great fun. Studies show that often rethinking biases, even beliefs, is possible and useful as it generates new solutions. Many facts change over time, such as how healthy we think dairy or vegetable oils are. So we challenged our perception of risks.
Now, think of a risk you've been hesitant to take. It could be quitting a job, starting a venture, traveling solo, or going on a blind date. How might your perspective change if you would view this as an opportunity rather than a potential setback? Let's take traveling solo, for example. There are 3 very common concerns about traveling alone. What will I do with my time? Will I get lonely? Will I feel safe?
These fears can be turned into excitement by discovering all the amazing things you can do during this time, while, of course, reading up on a certain area you're planning to visit is always a good safety measure. The benefits of solo travel include knowing yourself better, increased independence, better decision-making, and many people actually find it easier to make friends too.
Also, according to Google's trend data for the UK, the search term solo travel has increased with more than 700% in the last 2 years. So there are certainly other people out there already considering it. However, as with everything, it's important to remember to challenge yourself without being reckless. The point is that here we're giving solo travel as a very specific example, but whatever situation you find yourself in, there will be ways to look at it differently.
Our main lesson learned during the trip was the idea of seeing risks as opportunities. It is important to reevaluate your own beliefs for fresh solution every once in a while. For example, I try tofu every year to see if I now like it. Still no luck, but who knows, maybe next year.
So to sum it all up, by challenging your own limitations, making real connections, you can live life to the fullest.
We encourage you to reassess your own life and consider options for positive change.
We experience for ourselves that it's possible to travel with nearly nothing, so you too can do something that initially seems crazy, but in the end proves possible.
So if you've been thinking about something for a long time, ask yourself, what stops you from doing it now? And how can you make it a reality? Referring to a great film from the 90s, Trainspotting, choose life.
So go ahead, take that leap you've been thinking about, forge those connections, and be open to risks that can lead to incredible opportunities.
Because after all, you'll have to enjoy the process instead of just focusing on your end goal, whatever that is.
Thank you very much for being a part of our journey today. We can't wait to see where yours will take you.
Okay.